Hello, everybody. My name is Chris from Madrid, and today we're going to be talking about body genre film theory. So, I know even though we weren't able to see High Noon in class, I actually had already seen the movie before, and right after class, I was able to, watch it again so I could do this assignment. So, High Noon is a fascinating film to analyze. It's a really good one, too, especially in terms of its genre and depiction of violence, as it is a really good film. And as a Western, it fits into the body genre by eliciting a visceral reaction from its audience through suspense and tension. The film's real-time narrative builds an intense atmosphere that keeps viewers on the edge, effectively using the threat of violence to create a sense of urgency and dread. The film's portrayal of violence is quite nuanced for its time. Instead of glorifying gunfights, High Noon examines the moral and psychological implications of violence. The protagonist, Marshall Will Kane, is reluctantly drawn into a confrontation, highlighting the personal toll and the ethical dilemmas associated with violent conflict. This approach sets it apart from many other westerns of the era, which often depict violence more straightforward and heroically. A recent film that relies on a depiction of violence to tell its story, of the three body genres, the three main ones, one of the main ones is horror, so I decided to pick a horror film for this. And a recent example is Damien Leone's Terrifier 3, a very good and very violent horror film that came out this year, last month actually, as this movie heavily relies on very gratuitous and gory violence to tell its story. Because if you guys have seen these movies before, these Terrifier films rely on the shock factor and very, very graphic kills to entertain its audience. But this third Terrifier film is way more graphic and violent than the first two and turns the violence up a notch with its even more gory and over-the-top kills. It's definitely not for everyone, I'll say that. All the Terrifier films is about this psycho and sadistic clown named Art the Clown who goes around killing people just for fun to fulfill his sick urges, kind of like Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, and Freddy Krueger. And the violence is justified in this film, not from Art the Clown, definitely not, but from the other characters in this film that Art is trying to kill, because the other characters use violence to avoid and escape the wrath of Art the Clown. Because in this film, in this whole universe, it's either kill or be killed by Art the Clown. And after seeing the very brutal kills Art the Clown is capable of, these characters understand that they don't want to be chopped up into pieces. And by the end of the film, spoiler alert, the final girl ends up killing Art the Clown after he tortured and put her through hell throughout the whole movie. But she had to use violence to avoid the same fate for herself. What I think this film is trying to say about violence and our current culture morals is that we are so desensitized to violence in movies that most of the time, violence in films have very little effect on us. That it takes a movie like Terrifier 3 that pushes violence in this film to the most extreme to get our attention. Violence in film used to be extremely rare and hardly ever graphic until we got movies like in the late 60s and early 70s, like Bonnie and Clyde, Clockwork Orange, Straw Dogs, many others, that pushed the envelope in film. And now we got movies that normalize violence in film, like John Wick and Deadpool, which makes it have like less of an effect on us since we are so desensitized to violence in films. And that is what Terrifier 3, I think, in a way is trying to say. Although this movie is trying to say that we don't prioritize morals as much these days as we used to, because Art the Clown, kills anyone in this film, whether it's kids, whole families, butchers them to death without really any justification or reason. And this movie even involves some sacrilegious elements and scenes, one in particular having to do with Art the Clown putting a crown on the final girl's head, the one that Jesus wore. This movie is also a prime example of how women are often victimized in horror films, and really adds to Linda Williams' argument on how women are often betrayed in horror films. And Terrifier 3 is basically a parody of horror movie tropes that we're familiar with. Thank you for watching.